Good work out there, X. Zero looked awfully down in the dumps.
Oh, are you worried about him, Lair?
No, not really. As an operator, I'm just concerned about the overall welfare of the team. That's all.
Sure.
Zero's been used before by Sigma to create a virus. He's upset that his data was used in an attempt to destroy the world.
Oh my. Poor Zero.
He shouldn't blame himself. The problem's already been solved anyway. It seems Sigma may be involved in this new threat as well. Zero wants to take care of him for good this time. So do I.
Let's hope we can. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman X8. In the last part, more Mavericks, and now it's time for Pitch Black. Enter the military facility and stop weapons production. To get all the rare metals here, you're gonna want to bring in X and Axel. Axel is the more important one of the two, though, overall. Zero and Axel would also work, I guess, mostly.
Dark Mantis. Ready.
Be careful in there. There's an advanced security system in place that will track you. The key to this mission is in skillfully evading detection.
This is a stealth mission of sorts. We're gonna have ledges that can hurt you, guards that can see you to spawn more enemies, all that kind of jazz. But you don't really have to worry about it because getting spotted only just makes you have to fight enemies. You don't lose out on anything permanently. You don't lose out on a rare metal. You don't lose out on a light capsule or anything. It's more or less just for aesthetics more than anything. This is definitely a stage that gets easier, though, if you're playing on anything that's not a CRT TV. Because on those, this place was nearly impossible to see in besides the brightness of the lasers or the enemies. Spikes were hard to tell apart and everything, but on HD TVs or on PCs with a collection, you don't got a lot to worry about here. Be careful of things like these fans, though, because they can do some hefty damage if you get hit by them enough. Now, I say X or Zero can work with Axel to get everything in this stage, but it really depends on whether or not you've gotten the Icarus foot parts for X, because like I mentioned when we got those, that increases X's jump height to be about the same as Zero's double jump, and you're gonna need that height to get at least one of the rare metals here. This is a stage you can get everything on the first try, though, if you bring in X with the Axel and foot part combo. That is if you don't mess up a jump like I might in about 2 minutes-ish. You can tell some of these little mid-boss rooms that are sort of enemy rushes are more so here for Vile to show up in than they are for actual content for the stage, in cases like that. So these spotlights are the main things. If you get spotted by these, a bunch of the generic Reploid type spawns, and you have to fight them until you take out the commander, in which case you get to stealth around again, unless you hit another one of the lights. You want to be careful going through here, because eventually there's a generic Reploid you run into no matter what, and we want to hit that with Axel's copy shot to get their DNA core. There you are, because we need that to get more or less everything besides the light capsule in this stage. So what we want to do is, now that we're over here, we want to hug this left wall and jump up here for a secret doorway, and we can transform into that soldier and press the triangle button, whatever your special weapon button is, for a salute that will allow this guy to open the door because you're A-okay, and you can come here. This is a generator. If you have Gigavolt Manowar's weapon, you can charge it over and over again until the lights stay on permanently. This has multiple effects, mostly allowing you to get 2 of the 3 rare metals in the stage, but for the first one, you want to charge a crystal wall right here, and that will allow you to get the metal out of the ground. That, I believe, is a sub-tank for X0 and Axel to use, so hey, free life refill. Now, since I fell down there, I can't get the second rare metal because that was back up at the top, and you can just see me mourning for a second, but I move on. We can still get the later 2 items of the stage, though. In fact, the third one's coming up right here. For turning on the lights, not only do you not have to worry about the stealth in this section anymore, but there's going to be platforms that are lowered on the top and bottom of this particular set of hallways. And here at the very end, you can see it up there on the top of the screen, there's a rare metal you can get to with either Zero's double jump or the foot part's eye. that is Zero's D-Glaive weapon. It is a long spear that has extreme range, but I think only the tip of it really does any kind of damage. It's good, especially if you're trying to do Optic Sunflower stage, because if you're just trying to hit enemies, the tip's all you need. But yeah, it's not my favorite. Personally speaking, my two favorites of his weapons are the one you get on New Game Plus and the fan weapon that we'll talk about more down the line. If memory serves, though, on my first playthrough of X8 many a year ago, this I think was one of the first stages I took on, and being on a CRT back then, that was a bad decision because I couldn't see shit. I do think I at least got to the boss fight. I don't remember if I beat Dark Mantis first try, though. It's been a hot minute. Although, admittedly, X8 was, well, of course it was one of the last X games I played because it was like the third to last release, I think, counting Command Mission. But this was a game I was on the search for a while. Because X7 did not sell well at all, they made a very low print run of this game comparatively to basically any of the other X games. So finding a copy of this, especially in its original box, it can be rough.
X, I thought something like this might happen someday, so I've prepared parts for you. Here, try body parts H. With this part equipped, you will become invincible to weak enemy attacks. Equip this new ability and board the capsule, X. I hope this is the last time we need to use weapons of war like this, X. I really do.
In fact, if memory serves, my copy of this game is one of the ones that has like the generic GameStop box with that group of like 4 teenagers, early 20-somethings. Now, the body parts there might sound a little ridiculous, but what light means is that you're completely invincible to enemy attacks that do 2 HP or less to you. The target has the ability to move freely in the darkness without restriction. The darker it gets, the more dangerous a foe he becomes. I hope you're ready for this. We're probably gonna be fine, especially with this attack from Axel. Call it a hunch.
Warning. Warning.
I hear you're a prototype of us new generation Reploids. So, why did you become a Maverick Hunter?
Because I enjoy mopping the floor with the legs of evil mavericks like you, Mantis.
You don't understand a thing, do ya? There is no such thing as good and evil. You haven't realized that yet, have ya?
I may be a prototype, but don't assume I'm anything like you maverick creeps.
What's that? I can barely hear you guys over the environmental sound. That was kind of really loud. Alright, so Dark Mantis is a fight that's a lot harder if you don't actively turn on the generator like we did, because he's really hard to see. Attack-wise, he can throw his Shadow Runner attack at you, which is a little like crescent-shaped blade that'll travel forward for a little bit and then go in a little circle. He can dash and grab you, which is one of those attacks like most of the bosses have that you can use the character swap to escape from. He can throw arrows, I think, in arcs that come down in the other half of the arena, kind of like that, which kind of limits on where you can stand for a little bit. But his overdrive is probably the most interesting move. He gets up to the top of the screen and swipes twice with very large scythe blades. You need to stand on the side he starts on, I believe, in order to avoid getting hit there. What's really interesting about this attack, though, is that it's one of the few I can remember offhand that actually has a difference on hard mode. On hard mode, he gains these energy sides after the fact, which do damage on contact with you, even if you just walk into him. So be careful of him in this phase. As you can see, he's also a little bit hard to hit with X's Shining Ray, just because its explosion range is a little rough for something that moves this fast. But at the end of the day, not the worst fight. I think there are harder fights, and you could take him on first or second, I think probably pretty easily. So for beating him, we get the Shadow Runner as X. That is essentially a boomerang with homing capabilities. You can home in on enemies, but if you just fire it straight up, it just kind of circles around you a little bit. Axel gets the Black Arrow, which is a sort of machine gun version of the same weapon. It homes in on targets, and I think they can harm enemies even if they're still in walls. So in that regard, it could be pretty useful. And Zero gets a good old favorite, the Resetsu Sen. You press the special weapon button in the air, and you do a circular slash, and you can press any of the diagonals or downwards to even spin in that direction. So you could say just be a walking saw blade going downwards in a direction for a little bit. And I think there's even a glitch in some versions where if you're using a controller that allows you to press up and down at the same time, be it on emulator or even on the console, you just sort of fly upwards. It's really funny looking. It's also one of the best tools in the game to get high ranks in the Optic Sunflower stage minigames if you're trying to get to either the Cutman fight or to this rare medal that requires you to get a high rank on all of them in that stage. With that, though, we only got one Maverick left to go, and I've saved, I wouldn't say the best for last, but I've saved one for last. I think it's got a kind of a cool stage, but with a mini-boss that can really suck if you don't have Vile show up.
Looks like there's only one Maverick left. Could this be the last of them? Or is this just the beginning?
It's been a long time since they've gotten their hands on Lumine. The elevator seems normal so far, but that's just making me more nervous.
Just try not to think about it. We've come this far. Let's just take care of that last Maverick and move on, okay?
You're right, Axel. There's no time to be worried.
Right. Let's go.
It just makes me a little emotional, you know? It's time for our last Maverick in the main series. Yeah, sure, command mission's there, but we'll get to that eventually. And an X9 is still only a thought in our minds. Time for Primrose. Check the mysterious tower structure atop the anti-gravity lab. Let's get this started.
Gravity Antonion. Ready.
Looks like there's a gravity control system in place in this facility. You can probably open up new routes by rotating the gravitational pull.
So Gravity Antonion stage is an anti-gravity stage. This is going to be kind of a weird comparison. In the same vein as Crazy Gadget from Sonic Adventure 2, where there's buttons we press and gravity flips. You press a red switch, it flips 180 degrees. This allows you to make platforms out of things you couldn't before, but it also might make spikes more of a threat in some instances as well, so be careful. Also, very early on here, we want to use a copy shot on these things to get a light capsule in this stage for reasons. Now, notably, there are some times where you might want to flip the gravity, there are some times you're probably not going to want to, but there's also going to be times where you can use it to destroy enemies like this. There are blocks around you that are affected by the changes in gravitational pull. You should take note of the position of the blocks and predict the way they'll move. Some enemies can be destroyed by falling blocks, so be sure to use them to your advantage. Because no matter what, that's just satisfying. You do need to be careful though, because the blocks are constant throughout the stage and they can very easily crush you. And on my first playthrough, I died plenty of times just not thinking about where a block was going to fall correctly. There is another type of switch in this stage though. I think it shows up in the next room. Green switches. While red switches flip the gravity 180, green ones flip it 90 degrees. I think it flips in the same direction, so you don't need to worry about clockwise versus counterclockwise and all that jazz, but you still need to keep in mind which ones you're pressing in what order. It appears the gravity manipulation switches in that room operate differently. They should be able to help you find a route to the next area if you're stuck. So in case in this room, for instance, you want to press the top switch first, because that'll rotate gravity that way. And then you want to press this one, so that you don't get crushed down there. And you want to press it again, so you can avoid any kind of crushing and open up the block at the top of the screen. In this room, you don't want to press the red one first because you're just going to immediately crush, so press the green one first. It's not exactly a hard stage overall, barring a mini-boss we're, I think, avoiding. But on a first run, this can definitely be confusing if you're not used to anti-gravity stages, and even then, sometimes the object awareness might just not be there depending on the player, so be careful. This stage can be rough depending on who you are. Also, that room just feels kind of clunky in how they did it. I see the idea, but with how slow the switches take to operate, because there's like a cool-off period where they won't work for a second, it feels a little rough. Now we want to do something in this room. We want to use Axel's hover jets to get to that platform on the top left there, because the first rare metal for the stage is up there. It's a little bit of a tight hover, but you can make it eventually. And then we want to charge up Crystal Wall once again and use it in the center to get our first rare metal for the stage. That is Zero's K-Knuckle, which is sort of like the Zero Knuckle from 04, and that's a punch-based weapon that's very short range. Decent power, though. You don't steal weapons like you do in 04, though. It's not as good in that regard. It's a neat weapon, though. I like that he gets all these.
Why don't you just give up now and get it over with? The world as you know it, Mavericks, kiss it all goodbye. Mayhem, doom, and destruction. That's what we were built for.
Vile returns, and I think he has a new projectile type where he just kind of aims directly at you 3 times. And then that's it. He still uses the old one, but that's about it. If you don't fight Vile here, though, you have a really annoying mini-boss that's more of an avoidance minigame, where there are going to be, I think it's like 8 blocks across the top of the screen that will raise and lower in a set pattern with spikes on them. So either you get killed by the spikes at the top, or you get crushed to death. It's memorization and trial and error to the worst degree I find that one of these games has. I really don't like that mini-boss. But thankfully, if memory serves at least, if you consistently come here as the 8th Maverick, you can just avoid that by fighting Vile here. And because of how many stages we've done and what we've gotten, you can get every item in this stage without having to revisit it, so you don't need to worry about facing that mini-boss whatsoever. Now, if memory serves, the next room is where our next item is, and this is the one that you can get in 2 different ways, actually. This is where the light capsule is, for one thing. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to flip gravity so that what that is the bottom of the screen currently is the top, and then use the DNA core of the enemy I copied at the very start of the stage to get to it. Because the thing is about that enemy, and you could even see this at the start of the stage, is that they can stand on spikes. So when Axel copies them, you can do the same thing. If you didn't do that, you have to do a lot of maneuvering of those blocks and writing them down to get down this spike passage without getting hit. And it's pretty annoying. Just do this. It's a lot quicker, I'll tell you that much.
X, I thought something like this might happen someday, so I've prepared parts for you. Here you are, at Part's Eye. With this part equipped, you will cause damage to enemies by jumping near them. Equip this new ability and board the capsule, X. I hope this is the last time we need to use weapons of war like this, X. I really do.
Honestly, this is the only piece of the Icarus armor I think is kind of weak. It's sort of a revisit to X1's helmet parts in that it generates a shockwave around you when you jump. However, in this it's not used to break blocks, it just does damage to enemies. It does decent damage. It can kill most smaller enemies in a single shot, like the bad enemies and all that, but there's just better helmet parts in the series, I think. Honestly, I still think like X4's is arguably the best in that regard because it's infinite weapon energy. But it's there, it's useful, and ultimately it's still worth it because, we'll see this, I think, starting next part. The neat thing about the armors in this game is that if you equip all 4 pieces of a line, you get a little bonus effect, so it's worth having that around just for the Icarus armor's bonus in my eyes. Also, yeah, using this Reploid type is just really good in the stage from here on because it allows you to just ignore all the spikes and also grab the next rare metal for the stage. That one, if memory serves, is Zero's B-Fan, his, I think, final weapon bar in the New Game Plus exclusive one. Out of all the ones he gets, it's the most similar to the Z-Saber in range and combo. Its main benefit is actually from Earthrock Trilobite's ability. I miscalled that the Zekyodon earlier. It's the Rekyodon overall, but with the B-Fan, it becomes the Zekyodon, and it can reflect enemies' projectiles back at them to do damage. Honestly, I think it's better than the Z-Saber in that regard, because it does about the same damage otherwise. The main thing is that its combo count doesn't get increased by upgrades.
Warning. Warning.
Did Sigma make you go Maverick? My master is not incorrect in his philosophy.
But Sigma plans to bring catastrophe to this world. He's evil.
And the thought that it is this world that is evil has never crossed your mind? Oh, forget it. If you get in my way, I'll destroy you.
Alright, Gravity Antonion's honestly kind of a fun fight. First off, he has a short-range attack where he can do a little bit of a, like, sword attack with the blocks he generates, but his main attack is actually going to be dropping cubes on you from the ceiling. He generates them, and he can even catch them and throw them at you directly, so be careful of that. He can put a black hole in the center of the arena that can absorb your projectiles, which is really annoying given how his own weakness tries to track onto him. He can randomly, somewhat randomly at least, rotate the arena you're in, but I think he tends to do that mostly if there's a block spawned, because what he's trying to do is crush you with it to, I think, do an instant kill attack. And his overdrive is more or less the same as his normal cube drop attack, but he does several in a row, sort of in his pattern similar to almost what the mini-boss we avoided was like. He's not a very hard fight. If anything, I actually find him to be one of the most fun to fight in the game because he's more so an avoidance game than some of the other ones can be. I just wish his weakness was better at actively hitting him because you need to be pretty close. I'd say like within half of the stage of him to hit him consistently with it. Oh, that's the charged Shadowrunner. It shoots a lot of them out. What a surprise. There's harder Mavericks in the franchise overall, so this one shouldn't be any big deal with or without his weakness. And for beating him, we get some pretty okay weapons. X gets the Squeeze Bomb, which is a small black hole you shoot out that can do some good damage to smaller enemies, but it's really good at absorbing enemy fire. I think if you charge it, you just shoot out a gigantic one, too. Zero gets the Juhazan, which you press the triangle button while you're just on the ground, and you do a gigantic swing that can break barriers instantly. I really like that ability. And Axel gets the Spiral Magnum, which is just a very powerful bullet that can, I think, pierce guards instantly, and it can even shoot through walls like classic Megaman could. So honestly, pretty good stuff overall. I'd say X's is the only real stinker, because I don't really use that to get a light capsule by and large. And we are getting there in terms of our upgrades for everyone. X is almost done. Zero is the least that you can get done in the main playthrough because there's some weapons you can't get for him until New Game Plus to begin with. X is easily the easiest to upgrade of the three, far and away. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, now that we're done with all the Mavericks, we're gonna have some cutscenes for one thing, but then it's time to go for item cleanup, because we got a lot of items to get in the stages we've already been to. See you guys then.